G'day fellas and welcome to A Casted Game. Spawning in the north side of the map playing on the blue as the French, we've got Mimon. Now I say his name like that because I do think that in addition to him playing as the French, he's actually from a French clan which is called Squiz. I used to play with these guys back in the day with Age of Empires 3 and I think the majority of them were French and it sounds like a very good French name, Mimon. So we'll check in with him later, see how he's doing as he does drop down the house. Double scout opening for him. On the other side of the map, playing with a single scout opening, build order fresh out of 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, in the color yellow, playing as the English, it is the one, the only, the Viper. Isn't this it? You know what? I felt like that wasn't enough of a Viper. I gotta give him a little bit more. It is the one, the only, the Viper. There we go. I know you guys hate me for fanboying him, but it's been so long since we've seen Viper games. I'm just, I'm scrambling. Anyone I can get my hands on, I'm just grabbing it. I don't care. I don't care if it's 7 minutes long. I don't care if it's an hour long. I'll take it. I will take it. But we got a classic matchup for you guys here today. This is one that we've seen over and over again in Age of Empires 4. One that definitely was quite popular in Genesis as well as in the early stages of Golden League. And look at Viper spotting out the enemy scout back there. Never feels good when you see the enemy scout on your side that close. But interestingly, well, not interestingly, I mean, this is pretty standard, right? Just going for the single scout, even though he's up against the French. And typically French, I mean, you want to try and deny their food if possible. That's what they're going to be looking to do to you. So Mimon going to be going for 8 villagers on food, 2 villagers on gold for now. I suspect he's going to be going up to 4 villagers on gold here. Then we'll start moving out over to wood. And then from there, it will depend which way he wants to play it. Typically in this matchup, you'd expect a 2 town center opening from the French. But there's 2 options we've got. Number one is a little bit of a delayed town center where you look to try and get out some archers onto the field as well. Before your knights. And the second one is where you just go for that very quick second TC. A little bit more of an advanced strategy, but Mimon, he's inside the top 200, so I wouldn't be surprised if we do see that out of him today. Over on the other side, though, Viper, he's got a couple of options up his sleeve. Long gone are the days where we used to see a very heavy feudal play from the English in this matchup. It seems to be more orientated around the castle age now, but I will note that Viper has decided to really get a lot of villagers, or not really a lot of villagers, but go for a very quick age up here. We can see 4 villagers on the landmark, and he did go for that 7-3 build order. You know, something that we do talk about as a build order that was old school, back in the day, English build order 1.0. Back in the day when English was, on the alpha, or not the alpha, but the beta, this was the build order people did. They would just rush up and into the feudal age. We can see Viper now scouting out, does spot out 4 villagers on gold. That should give him an indication of what's coming through. 4 villagers on gold should indicate that there's going to be a wheelbarrow as well as an early knight. We'll double check and see whether Mimon has already got that wheelbarrow in. No, he doesn't, but he's definitely got the resources for it very, very soon. We can see about to drop off that last 10 wood. Actually, no, he hasn't even started chopping through that tree yet, but he's got a few more wood choppers over there now. But yeah, for the most part, done a pretty decent job of just scouting out the map. Going to spot out Beastie's side as well. Did I say Beastie's side? Viper's side. Jeez, that's awkward. I assure you these guys are 2 different people. But, yeah, nice little bit of a scout right here. But does get taken out by the TC. Viper doing a good job of dropping the scout down to about half health at the moment. And Council Hall out. So I would expect that we do see a barracks coming up in the transition. Or not in the transition because this is actually a very early age up. So a little bit after transition, he might look to put out early pressure on the French player. But obviously something that you've got to be very careful of doing just simply because, well, you're up against the French. A horseman or at least a knight is going to be coming at you very, very quickly. 4 villagers on the age up. We've got the wheelbarrow coming through. And Viper now reaches the feudal age. We'll check in with Viper and see what he does. It's just going to be a longbow that heads back towards the gold mine. So very smart move here from Mimon to be targeting the gold mine. Force out these units towards the back of the base. And look, to be honest, I don't think Viper's going to be moving out. Against a French player, it just seems like suicide for your longbows to be doing that. But now looking to focus down those scouts and just force them away, and indeed does so successfully. So where does Viper go from here? Well, he's gone for a wheelbarrow. So very curious opening here from the Viper. And not something that I've really... I guess the question is, like, typically whenever you're doing a build order, you're looking for the best way that it can synergize for your goal. And so typically, if you're saying, I want to put early pressure on my enemy, then it would make sense for you to age up really quickly because you can get that pressure on your enemy faster. But in this circumstance, it seems like Viper has not gone down that road. Rather, he elects to go for wheelbarrow here. Now we can see he didn't get a whole bunch of sheep, so that could be part of the reason. But we do actually have an early barracks coming out. It's going to be a 5-minute barracks. We'll take a look over on the other side of the map as the night begins making its way out. Mimon going to be looking to cause a little bit of havoc early on, but we do see the stone being taken. 3 villagers still on gold. Interesting that he's doing, you know, a whole bunch of things at the same time. We've got 10 villagers on food. We've got plenty of villagers on gold, so enough to maintain that night production. But at the same time, he's still gathering up stone for the second TC. This is something that I have not seen before, because typically you do move those gold villagers back to stone. Obviously, it's quite a walk, so perhaps he's just decided to do things a little bit differently. Viper chilling for the moment, looking like he's going to be dropping a second TC as well. Obviously spots out the stone from his enemy, and now focusing on that second TC. So we may potentially have a white tower coming down. Is that the case? We've seen Viper do the white tower before. Knight moving in onto the wood line. Viper got to watch out, watch out, watch out from the top rope, and now the villager might go down. He does a good job microing there. Villager's actually teeing off towards that Royal Knight. Fortunately, no charge coming out. Had there been a charge coming out, that would have been a different story. But Viper playing very well. I love the way that he keeps his low health villagers under the TC. This is something Age of Empires 2 players do, and they do very well. And the reason why is because typically in Age of Empires 2, when you're luring that boar, you're going to be losing a lot of health off your villager. And so the first thing that you will do is put your low health villagers onto farms very close to your town center, just so that they're a little bit safer. Makes a lot of sense. But looks like it was just a single night opening. Now moving into horsemen as well for Mimon. Second TC not yet up. You can see he's working towards it. The consequence of going for that only that one night opening, it really feels like the pressure coming out from the French player was quite low. Realistically, like, sure, okay, he got a unit out. Now Viper out with Spearman on the other side of the map. But it definitely felt like there was not a lot of pressure coming out from Mimon. It felt like Viper was very capably able to defend this. Just moved the villager back to the TC. Everyone else was just firing at the knight. He had to run for his life. He was fearful of what was going to happen. But now Viper pushing up. Little bit of charge there onto the Scout. Scout going to continue falling back, but at the same time, Spear's doing a decent job of just holding on. I'm loving the way Viper's playing this. Does force out the outpost on the gold mine for now. It's a very defensive outpost. And against the English, I can't help but feel like this might be a little bit of a mistake. Even if you get arrow slits in, there's no way you're collecting this gold. So Mimon, unfortunately, investing resources in an outpost that just is quite useless. And now, one of the things that we did talk about earlier was the concept, or was the potential build order that you could see. The French can go a town center before archery range, or they can go for a town center after archery range. And we now see the consequences of going for the TC before the archery range. You could see Mimon was definitely, you know, he was thinking about doing this, but Viper, he pushes forward with his just a handful of units. And the response is 2 archery ranges now coming out from Mimon. He still doesn't have enough resources in the bank to drop down that town center. Not even enough stone at this point in time. But we'll take a look how Viper's doing, as he's actually dropped his second TC. So beautiful little opening here from the Viper. I'm loving this. Just a little bit of aggression and then straight into the second TC. And now it looks like Viper's role-playing as the French right now. That's genuinely what I feel like we've got here. We've got the second TC coming out. It actually feels like Viper is playing the French build order. This is super smart from the Viper. Now, obviously, there's always the possibility that France goes all in from here. But realistically, I mean, Viper's still looking quite strong. Gold is gone. Where does he get gold from? I mean, there's a spot back here for gold. I guess it is down here, but these are all a little bit hard. I guess the best position he's got is out here, but for the moment, I don't think it's a huge issue, right? Like, what does Mimon want to do? Number 1, he wants to get that second TC up. Number 2, he wants to continue archer production. And number 3, horseman production is actually really good in this matchup. So I don't even think he really needs this gold. The only thing he's got to be worried about is getting those upgrades. But realistically, upgrades aren't a huge deal here. As long as you can get +1 ranged armor, you should be okay. But now Mimon looking for a little bit of a raid on this south side. Look at Viper just on the ball right now. Spearman moving out into position. He's going to have a bit of a tough battle on his hands, but the Royal Knights just going to be walking past for the moment, trying to get their charges out. Spearman going to be able to repel this. Villagers actually looking to pick off the Royal Knight. Oh, Viper, don't do him like that. Don't you dare do him like that. And, oh my lord, it's so close. 8 health. He may run into the second TC, though, and he may not actually know. Indeed, it looks like he will. But at the same time, towards the top side of the map, we've got a couple of units being thrown away. Archer mass looking very good for Mimon. he could be aggressive here on the defensive. When we could see Viper was thinking about going to Castle Age, realizing that there was a bit of a window here, but at the same time, needs to be cautious. If the French player does look to put down that second TC and go heavy all in the feudal age, it could be difficult for you to hold on as the English. But Viper definitely intent on getting up. Look at that. His macro is 100% on point for that Castle Age, and I'm loving the way that he's playing. Honestly, the more I see English, the more I want to start playing them. If it wasn't for the fact they were just a terrible civilization in the Castle Age, I might actually do that. But we'll check in with Mimon and see how his push is beginning to come. At the same time, villagers coming out of the main town center. Nothing on the second TC. It's feeling a little bit shoddy for him. 39 villagers at the moment compared to the 44 for the Viper. So he's up by 5 vills and looking to hold on. Beginning to posture out the front of his base. He's got to be careful, though. No outpost out here to provide that extra attack speed. And now he's going to realize, oh, no, Spearman got a bit too far away. Viper going to have to fall back away from this position. He's almost up to the next stage as well. We can see he's got about all the food that he needs. Just the only problem he's going to have is the lack of gold. Now, his scout did die, which means he doesn't have the scouting information, doesn't really know much about the enemy composition. Well, not enemy composition, but enemy numbers. That's the big factor. He doesn't know how far along his enemy is, whether he's really committing to this feudal age. And look, if he's playing against the French, you should know that you're going to be up against a feudal age all-in, or at least a feudal age commitment. It's not necessarily an all-in because they're going 2 TC behind him, but it definitely feels all-in when the French do strike. And now Longbows looking to tee off once again towards those Royal Knights. We're still yet to see any upgrades coming through from Mimon. We'll check in with the Viper and see if he's thought about doing anything with regard to upgrades, and it doesn't seem like it. Instead, just looking to stick out the line of sight, get a couple of outposts down, and now we've got ourselves a potential age up coming through. And the question is, which way does Viper go? Now, it's 2 town centers versus 2.2 town centers. It's important to remember that the French TC trains villagers a little bit faster. If we take a look here, you can see it's 18 seconds instead of 20 seconds, so it's the equivalent of 0.2 of a TC for these 2 TCs. So he's not doing terribly, but Viper going to be dropping down the King's Palace on the front line. Very, very bold of Viper to do this. So that's going to put him up to 3 town centers. Definitely bringing an Age of Empires 2 theme back to Age of Empires 4, it seems. Focusing heavily on his economy here and just looking to stick it with a huge amount of spearmen, a huge amount of longbows. So I think the question is, what composition do we see Viper go in from here? He needs a lot more wood than what he's gathering, that is for sure. And he's looking to get up 16 villagers here. This could be actually quite dangerous for Viper. Fortunately, his enemy is nowhere to be seen. Mimon going to be looking to age up himself, not thinking about applying any pressure. Obviously, very dangerous to push into the English player. They've got a lot of defensive bonuses. Number 1, they've got the network of castles. Number 2, their town centers and all their... Actually, I think it might just be the town center buildings fire double the arrows. So if you do get underneath them and look to try and take out units, you're going to have double the amount of units coming down, or rather arrows coming down. So a lot of really strong defensive bonuses, and of course their villagers can also fire off to help defend. There's just not a lot of good reasons to attack an English player underneath their town centers. But now we see that age up coming through from Mimon. It should be the Royal Institute. We'll double check and see where it is. It's going down in the back of the base. It's actually going to be the Guild Hall. So interestingly, goes for the Guild Hall. It's only on 55 vills. Maybe it's not a bad idea, but I can't help but feel like in this matchup, Guildhall could have helped a huge amount just with that early Royal Bloodlines. And now Viper going to be pushing out towards the front line of his enemy. You can see a nice little snipe there from Mimon. He's got to be careful in this position. Still no arrow slits. It is coming in now, and this is the correct tower placement against the English. Needs to be in front of the gold mine to deny those longbows from coming in. They can always weasel their way in around these little corners and stuff like that, but yeah, this is the better position. Viper getting the upgrades through now. We see Veteran Spearman, Veteran Longbow, +1 ranged attack. So things going very well for him, and now looking to add in even more farms. Transition happening quite strong for Viper at this point. Looking to really play heavily into longbows. And now a couple of villagers up on this north side of the base might get found out. Indeed they do. First one gonna be going down. There we go. Second one, does he get it? He gets it. He gets it. There we go. Gets the alley-oop. And now Viper going absolutely ham, not only getting the Steeled Arrow, but also going to be getting Military Academy, something you don't always see. Going for archery range and more barracks, so really playing a heavy infantry composition here, Viper is. Well, we'll check in with Mimon and see how he's doing. We've got a Siege Workshop coming down, so this is definitely going to be very nice up against that English siege composition. So a Mangonel or 2 should put a spanner in the works for the Viper, but don't be surprised if you see a Siege Workshop out from him, and maybe just a spring order or 2. the other alternative is just heavy amounts of men-at-arms. That's always going to be a possibility, and he can just right-click them on the mangonels. Shouldn't be too much trouble there if he does do that, but production numbers really looking good. He's got the equivalent of 4 archery rangers coming out now, Viper. Also looking to get through horticulture, so just playing his English very well. Army, incredibly mobile. Not too fussed about keeping it in front of his base or keeping it in his enemy's base. Just doing patrols, just on patrol at the moment. Mimon at the same time. He's out here doing patrols. Both of these guys just looking around the map. We've got a boar being taken over for Mimon. If he's not careful, he may actually lose one of these horsemen. Let's have a look there. He's being targeted down by this one here. Fortunately, it looks like the boar will go down without too many losses. Jeez, I tell you what. Jeez Louise, it does some damage, doesn't it? Oh my lord, that boar. Fire out. Viper now, once again, on the defensive, just playing that classic English style. Another barracks coming down. Look at the production coming out for the Viper right now. We're sitting on 3 barracks and the equivalent of 4 archery rangers. That's 7 production buildings. He's on 79 villages, obviously 3 TCs, or the equivalent of 3 TCs. And now pushing out beautiful line formation coming through from the Viper. Mangonel also out, will enter into the cinematic mode as Viper looks to try and take out the opponent. Mangonel shot goes a little bit wide, still continues pushing up for the moment. All of the spears looking to try and connect with the horsemen. Not going to be successful, but there doesn't feel like there's enough oomph here in this army, and the spearmen going to be running in towards the Mangonel. Mangonel getting healed up. Viper continuing to tee off on the back line. Spearmen just rampaging through the enemy forces. Mangonel once again over the top. Viper very, very nice with the micro here, and he's looking quite strong. Villagers tapping away as hard as they can, trying to get the heals off. Mangonel unfortunately unable to make any fortunate shots, and Viper able to clean up this entire position. Berries on the front line lost. Everything is going downhill for Mimon. This is not going well at all for him. Viper really looking good in that fight. That was impressive stuff. Just the spearman numbers in particular. He was able to utilize the really high spearman numbers, and there was a distinct lack of archers. We don't even see an archer upgrade. Now Mimon is going to be going for that archer upgrade. You can't help but feel it was too little too late. It just didn't feel right from Mimon. He was in a position that he probably didn't need to defend. I guess he had the Mangonel out, which sort of made him commit to it. But realistically, you'd love to have him move back towards these outposts. Sure, you give up the food, but at the end of the day, it's a pretty fair give up. And now he's had to move away from this position on the boar. Viper out here as well. No, Viper, don't do him like this. Don't do Mimon like this. The map is obviously lippany. There's berries everywhere, but Viper going to be spotting out these vills. Right, Viper? There we go. He spots them out. This is terrible right now. Villager count for Viper, 88. Mimon on 76. But that's going to continue climbing down, and Mimon taps out. Viper victorious. Ladies and gentlemen, Viper watches back. It is an absolute pleasure. I hope you guys have enjoyed this casted game, and I hope you're looking forward to much more Viper games, because I tell you what, it's absolutely amazing having him back.